This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Sophia Yvette.
Welcome to the Good Neighbor Podcast. Are you in need of a disability assessment consultant? Well, one may be closer than you think. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing your good neighbor, Dr. Colombo-Dougovito with Whitepaw Consultancy. Dr. Colombo-Dougovito, how are you today?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing, Sophia?
I am doing good. Now, we're excited to learn all about you and your business. So please start off and tell our listeners just a little bit more about your company.
Sure. So Whitepaw Consultancy is a bit of a side gig for myself. I'm actually a faculty member over at the University of North Texas in Denton. So I'm not quite in where you guys are. So I'm good neighbors a little bit further away, but I am definitely in the DFW area. And with Whitepaw Consultancy, I use my academic expertise in disability and physical activity to do individual assessments with families, any age, young toddlers all the way up to young adults and adults on various different developmental disabilities, autism, ADHD, for things like getting diagnoses, for support to develop an individual education plan with their schools, getting workplace accommodations, to needing support in order to file and get disability benefits or sort of other supporting documents that way.
Now, this is quite a serious business that you're in. So tell us a little bit more about your background, how you got into this industry.
Sure. I really got here by accident. I actually got started as a teacher. I was a public school physical education teacher in Michigan and in Colorado for a little while. And I worked in the public schools. And while I was doing that, I became very aware of sort of a lot of the movement difficulties that kids were facing, particularly the kids with disabilities. And that led me into doing my PhD and my doctoral work, which focused on motor skills in autistic populations at the time. And from there, I got a lot of training on how to assess motor skills, how to assess a lot of the behavioral cues that we look for in instances with ADHD or autism or other forms of developmental disabilities. And as I started my academic position, as I mentioned, I'm a faculty member over at the University of North Texas. As I started in that position, I started to notice that a lot of the families that I engaged with over here needed support. And I knew academically that it is very costly to get a diagnosis. A lot of families and individuals don't necessarily know the processes of how to go about getting an assessment done so that they can get workplace accommodations, which are legally their right under the Americans with Disabilities Act, or supporting their child's education to get individual education services through IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And so that's really what kind of was the prefaces for Whitepaw Consultancy, was just trying to help out and getting to use my academic understanding and expertise and knowledge and skills in a way that is very directly, hopefully, impacting families. Because as I mentioned, I don't have to rely on this. It's not my only gig that I do in life. So I do really try to work hard with families in order to provide services within their budgets, and as best as I can, because I do know it's very hard for families, particularly right now.
Now, Dr. Colombo-Dougovito, let's get into that most common myth or misconception you come across when it comes to helping these families and disabilities overall. Mm-hmm. So go ahead and tell our audience today what that is.
I mean, I think the biggest misconception is that there's not help for you, that people think that their issues might not rise to the level where they deserve support, right? I think a lot of us sometimes feel that, well, there's people who are worse off than us, or, maybe it's, something else. I'm just not working hard enough. But when we have individuals that are on the autism spectrum or have ADHD or some other form of developmental disability, it can be impactful, and not in a negative way, not to say that somebody is worse off, or they need to be fixed or anything along those lines. But we understand people learn differently, they move differently, we have different needs, and we live in a society still with laws that state you are afforded certain accommodations, particularly when we think about it in the school settings. I think a lot of parents sometimes aren't fully aware just what really is within their rights to advocate for their own child's education. Whether it is testing accommodations or differing types of materials, or different settings to take assessments, different times, different modalities. Right? There's all sorts of accommodations that we don't often think about, that aren't making curriculum easier. It's not making the guidance, we're not bringing down expectations, but what we're trying to do is really level a playing field. And there are folks like myself that can help support parents through those processes. So that's also a service that I offer, that if parents need an advocate and I are in an IEP meeting, or another form of an advocate with their school district, or even with the legal system, I'm here to try to provide those supports, because that's where I feel we really have a lack. That there's in the schools, I think our teachers and our administrators, I think, are doing the best they possibly can. And I truly believe families are doing the best that they possibly can, but there's often a gap. We sometimes just don't always know. And we have a lot of things that we're trying to deal with. So I hope to try to fill a little gap and help supporting families and individuals get those services that they have the right to access.
So, Dr. Colombo, thank you so much for sharing your heart behind the business with us today. Now, diving deeper here, we know marketing is the heart of every business. So, we know that you help these families, these children with disabilities, but how are you attracting them?
Well, mostly through word of mouth. So I do have a website. It's consult.amcd, which is my initials, .work. So you can go there and find more information, even schedule an initial consultation with me. But beyond that, I'm not really on much social media. I don't do a lot of marketing, mostly because I'm only one person, and my business really is just me. And so I try to fill in where I can, when I'm not doing my other job duties. But as an individual, I am on social media, and I do reach out for people who connect with me that way. But in terms of my business, I think my website is the biggest, really the only place you're going to find information.
So, Dr. Colombo-Dougovito, have you ever thought about having your own podcast for the business? I mean, you have so much information to share just on this podcast alone.
Yeah. I mean, funny enough, I actually used to host a podcast for a few years. It wasn't really business related. It was more of a sort of informational interview sort of podcast. And I am considering jumping back in to podcasting, but sort of in a different avenue, not necessarily in the business realm. So I'm not unfamiliar with it. But yeah, that is an interesting thought. Maybe I might consider doing that too.
Well, with AI taking everything over, how do you expect to keep the doors open to your business without marketing online?
Yeah, I think, how much time do we have? Because I mean, we could really get into the AI discussion, but I mean, I
Oh
think.
no, this is gonna be a one sensor. We're almost out of time today.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think the trouble with AI, in in this realm is that AI can help us, I think, make determinations. It can be very good to help us find patterns, but AI really lacks the critical thinking piece and the connection to the world that we all live in. AI doesn't have that information, that access. So when we do assessments, it's more than just taking a measurement. It's more than just describing a number to a certain behavior. There's an evaluation piece behind it. Any of us who conduct assessments sit and have to think, what does this actually mean in the context of it? And I think that human detail is really going to keep and help safeguard us for a little while in terms of the assessment side of things. So I would encourage families, if you find assessments that are AI driven, it might be a great start, but I really would reach out to an expert, because that's where you're really going to make that deeper connection and interpretation of what those data are.
Well, Dr. Colombo-Dougovito, we are just about out of time today, but what about when it comes to marketing? As I said,
Yeah.
I understand your point of view on AI, but how do you expect to keep your doors open with marketing?
Yeah, well, thankfully, as I mentioned, it's not my only gig. So, I do have the privilege of being able to kind of be a little boutique business. I'm not necessarily trying to compete. I don't have to get clients to feed myself, which is kind of a nice thing. So I'm able to actually work with individuals who really need help, and do so in a way that that feels authentic to myself. And I don't say I do no marketing. I'm on this podcast, so I do appreciate you guys inviting me on. But really, I'm still kind of old school in the way that I like the analog word of mouth, and talking with families. Often that's kind of where I get a lot of my business, is talking with folks and just communicating. And I don't know, people tend to find me when I tell them what I do, and then they start asking a bunch of questions. So
Dr. Colombo, we're going to have to wrap things up today, but thank you so much for giving our audience all this fantastic information. It seems like you really favor connection over anything else, and that's an amazing thing. We really appreciate you being on the show today. We wish you and your business the best.
Thank you so much, Sophia.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpfrisco.com. That's gnpfrisco.com, or call 469-221-9345.